Hey guys, how's it going? I'm going to walk you through how to host Stable Diffusion on AWS SageMaker and how to run inference using an endpoint that we get from SageMaker. So I've created this notebook, and a lot of the code from this is based on an article written by somebody who works at Hugging Face. He wrote it about a year ago. So I turned this article into some code and changed some of his code as well. And I'm going to walk you through how to set this up. So first of all, I am in AWS SageMaker Studio. You can actually do this on your computer on VS Code or Cursor or Google Colab. You don't need a GPU to set this up, but I'm doing this in this environment because the checkpoint files are huge and I don't want to download them on my computer, so I'm using this environment. So to get started, you're going to want to pip install SageMaker and Hugging Face. So I'm going to do that, and then we're going to need to install .env for this particular environment. Basically, I'm doing this because when we use AWS, we need to provide our access key, our secret key, and the region name. And so you can hard code those, but I want to obfuscate them in this tutorial so you guys don't steal them and use them. So what this code is doing is it's creating a session for Bodo 3, and it's using SageMaker to create a session. So all this is doing is it's basically initializing the AWS SageMaker session. And so it's going to give us a bucket and a session region. And we're going to use this later on in our example. And so what we need to do now is we're going to create a directory with the name code, and then in that directory we're going to create a requirements.txt file with diffusers and transformers, and then we're going to, within the code directory, create an inference.py script. So this script is the inference API call, and so we can change the parameters in here, but what we need to pass in is the prompt, and you can also pass in other variables like the number of inference steps. So let's run these. Let's make the code directory. So it's going to appear here. And then we're going to create the requirements.txt. And then we're going to create the inference.py script, which is our script to run inference. And we've run those, and if we go in here, we can see that there's an inference py script, and then there's a requirements.txt, which is perfect. So let's go back to this. And what this code block is doing is it's downloading the model checkpoint from Hugging Face. So you're going to need to get a Hugging Face token and add yours in here. I've already put this in the environment variable, so it's going to work, but just keep that in mind. So it'll take a couple of seconds, or actually it's already done, and it should appear here shortly. This will be the model, which has the scheduler, the tokenizer, basically everything that from Hugging Face that it needs to run. And so we're going to copy the code directory, which has the requirements.txt and the inference script, into the model directory. So let's do that. So it's basically just going to copy the contents of here and put it into here. And it's done that. And so we can just make sure it worked by looking for code directory here, and yep, you can see that it has those in there. And then what this is going to do is this is going to compress everything in our model directory into a tarball, which is basically just a compressed file that has all of our files within it. So let's do that, and it should create a model.tar file here. And so we're going to actually upload this compressed tar file to S3. So that's what this code does here. It's basically just uploading the file here into S3. So let's do that. And then I think that this may take a second. So let's see. So we can see that this is busy. So I'm going to fast forward it until it's done, because if I remember correctly, this is going to actually take a couple of minutes. So I'll fast forward that. Okay, so it finished uploading it to S3, and this is the S3 URL that it gave us. So we can make sure that this is right by going to S3, and then let's refresh this. So this is S3 in AWS. So we are going to look for this SageMaker US West 2. So we just uploaded this just now. So let's click this, and we can see that we uploaded Stable Diffusion version 1.4 into the bucket. And so that's good. And so what this does now is this is going to use the bucket to create an endpoint on SageMaker, and it's going to use this instance type, which is a T4 GPU. It has one T4 GPU. And so that's what this code does here. And so let's go ahead and make sure this lines up, because you see where it says model data here? This is the path to the S3 file that we just uploaded our model to. So this needs to match this. So it looks like it does, but you're going to basically want to copy this into here. And this is the execution role. Basically, this is just like a role saying that we have permission to execute this and create the SageMaker endpoint. You can get this from your IAM console. Just go to AWS and go to IAM and look for the role that has access to SageMaker. And so let's do this, and this is going to take a couple of minutes as well. This should take about 5 minutes, and I will return once it's done. Okay guys, it's finally done running. This took about 5 minutes. So the endpoint is created, and let's make sure that the endpoint exists by going into AWS SageMaker. So right now we're in S3. We need to go to SageMaker. So let's click SageMaker. And let's go to Inference, and then go to Endpoints. And there says no resources. That's because we're in the wrong region. Remember, we used US West 2. So if we click this, we should see a endpoint. So perfect. We just now created this. So let's click into this to learn more about it. So this is the name of the endpoint. This is the actual URL that you can invoke it through. And it says here that this is real time. So this GPU instance is always running, it's always on, which can get pretty expensive, and I'm going to talk about that in a couple of minutes. But first, let's run this by copying this, and then let's go back here. So this last script of code is just to run the API, and to do that, all you need to do is change out this URL here and then run this. So we're going to run this first, and this is going to time how long it's going to take, and it's also going to show the image. And the prompt is a dog trying to catch a flying pizza art. So let's run this with our endpoint and see what we get. And then I'm going to walk you through that code a little bit more. It's pretty straightforward, but I'll walk you through it nonetheless. So it took 7 seconds, and this is the image it gave us, which is the dog catching a pizza, which is pretty cool. And so what this is doing is it's pretty simple. By default, the response you're going to get is going to be in base 64. So what this is doing is it's some helper functions to decode and convert it so that we can actually visualize the image within this notebook. So, and this is just timing. This is the important part. We need to initialize Boto 3 with SageMaker runtime. And if you're running all of this inside of your Python server, which you can do, you're going to need to add the AWS account ID as well as your AWS secret access ID and the region in here. So if you're running this inside of your own server and you get that error, just be sure to add those AWS values in here. And so this is our prompt. This is the number of images. We're basically just creating a payload. This is the endpoint. And this is the important part. We're invoking the endpoint with the endpoint name with the payload. And this is just processing the image so that we can visualize it as well as calculating how long it's taking. So if you want to use this, feel free to just copy this code and make a few small changes, and you should be able to use this as an endpoint. Now, a couple more things to talk about is the pricing. We used one of the smaller, cheaper GPUs, and because it's always on, leaving this on is going to cost us $300 a month, which is quite expensive. So whenever you don't want to use this, you really need to be sure that you delete this. And you can do that by checking this and then going to delete and then clicking delete. Otherwise, you're going to get a bill for $300 at the end of the month. And so if you have an interest in Stable Diffusion and using it as an API within your app, I'm actually offering my calendar, which you can book some time. We're running a service to run Stable Diffusion API as a service for you guys. So if you're interested in how you can make use of that so you don't have to pay $300 and pay much less than that, feel free to book a time on here, and I'll put this link in the description as well. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions at all. I'm happy to answer them. And yeah, hopefully hear from you soon. Thanks so much. Bye.